Hello and welcome to this short presentation on SQL. I'm Cynthia Saracco, a Senior Solution Architect at IBM Silicon Valley Lab. SQL, sometimes pronounced SQL, refers to the structured query language, and it is the industry standard way in which programmers work with relational database management systems, including such popular offerings as Oracle, DB2, Microsoft SQL Server, and many more. In fact, you'll find SQL widely used in a variety of business applications today, including simple query report writing applications to more complicated online transaction and online analytical processing applications. Indeed, the very popularity and widespread use of SQL has actually begun driving the demand for its application outside of its original target relational database management domain. So let's review some of the basics of SQL. First of all, programmers model and work with their data in simple tables. SQL itself is a set-oriented language, and it allows programmers to work at a fairly high level of abstraction. Indeed, programmers, when they write queries, specify simply what data they want to be retrieved from the system, but are relieved of the burden of telling the system exactly how to navigate or get to the data of interest. SQL includes several data definition language statements that allow programmers to create various objects, including tables and views, which are simply just virtual tables. It also includes various data manipulation language statements that allow programmers to read and write data to and from tables. These include things like select, insert, update, and delete operations. Finally, it includes various data control language statements that allow programmers and administrators to confer and withdraw privileges against database objects to various users or groups of users. So let's review some simple SQL examples. First of all, we'll start by creating a table. And in this case, I've decided to create a table called account to model bank account information. And my account table is pretty simple. It includes just 3 columns. There's an ID column of type integer, a column named type that is a varying length character string that can range up to 20 characters, and a balance column that's a decimal. Next, I'm going to go ahead and insert some data into the table, and in this case I'm inserting 2 different rows or records into the table. And I simply write an insert statement that provides appropriate values for each of the columns that I've specified in my table. Having done that, I might want to query my table, and in this case I've decided to select or retrieve values for 2 of the columns available in my table, specifically the ID and balance columns. And furthermore, I'm only interested in retrieving rows or records where that apply to savings accounts, that is, where the value of the type column is equal to savings. So if I were to execute this particular query against a system in which I've inserted the rows shown previously, I would get precisely 1 row back in my result set, as you see in the example on the right-hand side. In the final example, I'm showing you how I can grant permission to select or read data from my table to user 1. Now, as you might imagine, SQL can get quite more complicated in real life. In fact, queries often consist of many different kinds of operations, ranging from projection and restriction operations to filter the rows and columns returned in the result set, to join operations that combine rows from multiple tables, or union operations that combine the results of multiple select statements. You might also find grouping and order by clauses, aggregate functions, subqueries, and a variety of other types of operations in any given query. And to just give you a little example of some of the complexity that you might see in a query, take a quick glance at the example I've shown here on the right-hand side. You'll notice that I have join, projection, restriction, group by, order by, and subqueries all in this one example. Now, if you want to learn more, you've got many choices. On this particular chart, I've highlighted 3 different options where you can visit that provides free training material on SQL. And with that, I'd like to thank you for attending this short talk.